There is a truth few dare to admit. Many men, no matter how strong, no matter how experienced, remain trapped in relationships that slowly cause them to lose themselves. They believe it is love. They assume it is responsibility, the natural role of a man, to protect, to shoulder burdens, to lead, but deep beneath the surface, it is a painful cycle, where they become the father, the healer, the savior. For a woman who has never truly matured, she wears the appearance of a woman, but inside carries the soul of a girl, who has never confronted reality. Jung called this the Puella Eterna, the eternal girl. Carl Jung, with his profound insights into analytical psychology, identified this archetype long before society had a name for it. He not only described the Puella Eterna, but also warned men, if you are not awake enough to recognize it, you will pay the price. For while she avoids growth, you will be the one carrying the weight of her unfinished life. And gradually, you will lose your freedom, your strength, and even your sense of purpose. Society does not teach men how to recognize this. They are taught how to protect, how to be heroes, but no one tells them that there are women who do not need a hero. They need someone so they never had to grow up. And if a man does not understand this, he will enter these relationships, over and over again, trapped in a cycle of hurt and depletion. Therefore, this journey is not just about understanding the woman, it is about the man understanding himself. To recognize why he is drawn to such relationships, why he is willing to sacrifice himself to save someone else, and where the boundary lies between love and burden. This is an invitation for him to awaken, to break free from the endless emotional spiral, and step onto the path of clarity, strength, and inner freedom. 1. Puella Eterna. Who is the eternal girl? There is a type of woman who, though grown physically, remains psychologically stuck somewhere far back in the past, a place where pink dreams still reign, where the reality of life is veiled in a mist of unrealistic expectations. In sweet but dependent emotions, Carl Jung called this the Puella Eterna, the eternal girl, a symbolic image of a woman who refuses to mature psychologically, who lives in a world of fantasy, avoiding the harsh but necessary demands of real life. Puella Eterna is not youthful in the positive sense of the word. She is not a symbol of freshness or vitality, but a symbol of postponement, of evading the demands of adulthood. In her mind, life must be magical, love must be a fairy tale, and everything should happen effortlessly, without facing hardship or responsibility. She wants to be loved, cared for, rescued, but refuses to embark on the journey of building herself to be worthy of those things. In the image of Puella Eterna, we see women who do not want to bear the weight of life. They can be charming, dreamy, even creative, but they lack an inner structure. They live on fleeting emotions, run away from long-term commitments, and fear facing stability. They frequently change jobs, passions, relationships, not because they are exploring themselves, but because they are afraid of building something lasting, afraid of confronting themselves in moments of stillness. Carl Jung pointed out that, just as men can be trapped in the image of Puella Eternus, the eternal boy, women, too, can live in the state of Puella Eterna. While the Puella often avoids responsibility through adventure and rebellion, the Puella evades reality by immersing herself in romantic dreams, emotionally relying on others to feel safe. Consider the manifestations of Puella Eterna in real life. These are women who fear making important decisions, preferring others to choose for them, those who cannot stay long in a relationship or a job without feeling suffocated, even though they constantly seek stability. They jump from one relationship to another, always drawn to the thrill of something new, but when faced with challenges requiring perseverance, they retreat. Each time emotions surge or spiral into chaos, they long for someone to comfort, soothe, and make them feel okay again. What is striking is that the image of Puella Eterna does not solely arise from within them. Popular culture, social media, and even traditional values contribute to sustaining this image. Romantic films, modern fairy tales, images of free women who in reality drift without roots, all of these nourish a mindset that women can forever live as carefree, adorable girls, sheltered from every hardship. But what is the cost? Puella Eterna becomes someone living in the shadow of herself. She does not know how to build inner strength, how to face wounds, or how to self-heal. She lives as if someone, a strong man, an ideal companion, will come to fix everything. But the truth is, no one can do that for her. And the longer she remains in that state, the more she falls into cycles of disappointment, feeling empty even when someone is beside her. Jung said, "What you do not face in the unconscious will return in your life as fate." And Puella Eterna is a testament to this. When she refuses to confront the demands of growth, the shadows within her psyche repeat themselves. Through failed relationships, lingering emptiness, and dependence on others to fill the void inside. Therefore, the question is not just who Puella Eterna is, but what dream is she willing to step out of in order to truly live? And the man standing before her, does he realize he is engaging with an undeveloped soul? 2. The man becomes a victim of illusion. No one teaches men how to recognize an unformed soul. They grow up under the expectations of being strong, carrying burdens, becoming the protector, but no one shows them that some women do not grow at the same pace as they do. And love, if not illuminated by awareness, can turn a man into a victim of his own kindness and his instinct to shelter. A man enters a relationship with a woman embodying the Puella Eterna archetype with sincere feelings. He sees her as sweet, dreamy, sensitive, traits that seem feminine and endearing. But over time, he begins to realize that behind this gentleness is not mature softness, but an empty psychological structure. She cannot take responsibility for her emotions, often falls into states of insecurity, becomes easily agitated, or withdraws like a child refusing to face reality. And then he does what many men have done and are still doing. He tries to fix it. He becomes the guide, the comforter, the bearer of burdens, the one who soothes every outburst and anxiety she experiences. He believes that this is love, that this is a man's responsibility, but he does not realize that he is falling into the trap of the savior illusion, where he believes that if he is kind enough, patient enough, forgiving enough, she will change. Jung called this unconscious compensation. When a woman does not develop her inner strength, she will unconsciously seek a man to do it for her. And if the man does not recognize this psychological game, he will be pulled into the role of rescuer, spiritual father, psychological anchor. But this is not love. This is a profound imbalance between two people who are not truly mature. He begins to feel exhausted every time a problem arises. He is the one who must take the initiative. Every time there is conflict, he is the one who apologizes, even when it is not his fault. Because she is too fragile, too easily hurt. Gradually, he shrinks himself to reassure her. He scales back his own goals to spend more time on the relationship. He speaks less, smiles more, tolerates more, just to maintain peace. And at that very moment, he loses himself. One of the most subtle tragedies for a man in a relationship with Puella Eterna is that he does not realize he is diminishing. He thinks he is loving, sacrificing, and doing the right thing. But in reality, he is dismantling his personal structure to adapt to someone who does not want to step out of her childlike world. Carl Jung once warned, "What you do not bring into consciousness will return to you as fate." And this is that fate. The man drawn into a repetitive cycle of relationships with underdeveloped women, loving, then hurting, hoping, then disappointed. He thinks he is unlucky. But the truth is that he has never been taught to recognize the difference between maturity and illusion wrapped in femininity. Perhaps he too carries a shadow, the desire to be needed, to be the savior. That very need makes him vulnerable to unbalanced relationships where he is the only one trying. And when the relationship collapses, he is not only hurt, he is lost, confused, sometimes doubting his own worth. This is not to blame the woman. Many of them are also victims of society, of distorted upbringing, where they were praised for being cute, not strong, loved for being fragile, not for being capable. But if the man does not recognize this pattern, if he continues to play the role of psychological father in relationships, then he is the one who must awaken first. And what is the first step? It is daring to face the truth that love, without maturity from both sides, is not love, but a mutual imprisonment by illusions and distorted responsibilities. A man is not born to be the foundation for someone else. He is born to build a life, together with a woman who knows how to stand firmly on her own 2 feet. 3. Signs of Puella Eterna. It is not difficult to recognize Puella Eterna, the eternal girl, if you are perceptive enough to see beyond her sweet exterior and graceful charm. But unfortunately, most men are drawn precisely to that mask, mistaking fragility and cuteness as essential traits of femininity, without realizing they are merely a disguise for an unformed soul. Puella Eterna is often recognizable through these signs. 1. Avoiding responsibility. When faced with difficulties, instead of solving them together, she finds ways to avoid them or shift the blame. A minor argument can turn into an emotional storm, and you, the man, quickly become the villain, simply because you wish for an honest conversation. Whenever an important decision needs to be made, she either waits for you to shoulder it or ignores it, hoping things will work out on their own. 2. Romanticizing reality. Puella Eterna lives in a world of fairy tales, painted by her unconscious. She does not seek real companionship, but longs for some prince to come rescue her from life's challenges. She may enjoy passionate, emotional love affairs, but when it comes to commitment, building, and solving problems together, she withdraws. 3. Always the victim. When conflicts arise, she often turns herself into the most wounded party. She may cry, tell you that you do not understand her, or even blame circumstances, the past, or others, anything to avoid facing the truth that she needs to change and grow up. This psychological immaturity turns every deep conversation into an emotional minefield. 4. Rapidly changing interests and emotions. One day she may be excited about future plans, and the next, she is disheartened, dismissing all previous ideas. Her work, passions, and life direction shift like the wind. She is easily enchanted by new things, but rarely commits to anything long-term. Her emotions fluctuate unpredictably. You never know which version of her you will meet today. The cheerful, energetic girl, or the sad, disappointed, sulking one. 5. Emotional dependence. One of the most noticeable traits is her emotional reliance on you to feel okay. She constantly needs you to affirm her worth, to comfort her when she is sad, to explain yourself whenever she misunderstands. Any silence in communication can feel like deprivation to her. Instead of sharing the emotional burden with you, she dumps all her unresolved feelings onto you. Carl Jung called this the indistinguishability between the conscious and the unconscious. When a person has not done the work of facing their shadow, they bring all their chaos, insecurity, and unfulfilled desires into the relationship, hoping someone else will carry it for them. But if you are a man, you need to understand, no one can do her personal growth work for her. No advice, patience, or kindness on your part can help her develop if she is not ready to face herself. And when you recognize Puella Eterna, it is also time for you to clearly assess your role in this relationship. Are you her lover or her caretaker? Are you a companion, or are you being pulled into her emotional whirlpool? 4. Consequences for the man. What happens when a man stays too long in a relationship with Puella Eterna? He does not just burn out, he loses himself. Carl Jung said, "What is not brought to consciousness will direct your life, and you will call it fate." And that fate is this: the man gets trapped in the role of the psychological father, the savior, without even realizing it. At first, he believes his tolerance is a virtue. He thinks he is patient, understanding, doing everything to preserve love. But gradually, he begins to shrink, sharing less of his true feelings to avoid hurting her, compromising his own ideals to prevent conflict. He stops asking big questions about the future, because every time he brings them up, she evades or reacts negatively. And the worst part, he loses his own clarity. While trying to be the guide, he gets trapped in her emotional labyrinth. Each time she feels insecure, he rushes to reassure her. Each time she gets angry, he seeks to soothe her. Each time she dreams unrealistically, he encourages her, hoping she will grow. But in the end, he saves no one, only drives himself into a life without balance. One of the greatest consequences is the erosion of inner strength. The man gradually loses focus, decisiveness, and connection with his personal goals and dreams. He feels as if he is living for someone else, rather than building a life together with someone. And the tragedy is, the more he tries, the more exhausted he becomes. She does not grow. In fact, her sense of dependence only deepens, and the relationship gradually becomes a vortex of endless emotional waves. Jung said, "The shadow that is not faced will manifest as fate." For the man, that shadow is the need to be needed, to be the hero. But every hero will eventually collapse if he does not know his own limits. And when the man falls into that state, it is not just the relationship that breaks, but he himself loses his path. 5. The hidden truth and a culture that nurtures illusion. In a world where glittering images and romantic fantasies are continuously painted across social media, films, and popular culture, it becomes difficult to discern what is real and what is merely illusion, especially when it comes to the female archetypes glorified by society. Gentle, free-spirited, mysterious, childlike innocence, wrapped in an adult form, an alluring blend of naivety and physical maturity. But Carl Jung warned us long ago, behind those images could lie a soul that has never crossed the threshold of psychological maturity. Puella Eterna, the eternal girl, is not merely an individual phenomenon. She is a product of a culture that encourages women to maintain an eternal youthful appearance, a certain lightness, while avoiding the deeper demands of life, responsibility, commitment, confronting pain, and personal limitations. This culture teaches women to preserve a delicate beauty, but does not encourage them to cultivate inner strength or psychological resilience. Women are praised for keeping their youth, for living life as an endless game. They are applauded when they are cute, romantic, and playful, but often judged or even dismissed when they show determination, ambition, or claim power. Thus, the image of Puella Eterna is inflated and nurtured by the very machinery of popular culture. Songs glorify girls who remain forever 20. Romantic films portray female leads who always need rescuing. Social media influencers craft images, perpetuating a collective illusion. A girl does not need to grow up. She only needs to be charming and magnetic. There will always be a man to handle the rest. Carl Jung called this the persona, the social mask each person wears to meet the expectations of others. For Puella Eterna, that mask is her allure, innocence, ability to keep everything light and pleasant. But behind that mask, emptiness, because without inner maturation, she lacks a solid psychological structure to face reality. And it is not just women who become trapped. Men also become its victims. The culture encourages men to be protectors, saviors, heroes, and in relationships with Puella Eterna, they easily fall into the role of father, healer, bearer of all emotional burdens. The interplay between these two archetypes, Puella Eterna and the male savior, creates a painful but difficult to break cycle. This truth is often hidden. No one teaches men how to recognize immature psychology in women. No one tells them, not every captivating girl is a psychologically mature woman. Worse, culture encourages men to fall deeper into the role of savior as a way to affirm their masculinity. But Jung pointed out, the truth does not lie in the social archetypes erected by culture. It lies in the process of facing the shadow and cultivating true inner maturity. For both men and women, to break free from this cycle, they must confront the unacknowledged parts of themselves. That is where the real transformation begins. 6. Jung and the path to healing. Carl Jung did not stop at identifying the problem. He mapped out a path, the path of healing, of psychological growth, which he called individuation. This is a journey each person must walk alone to reconnect the fragmented parts of the soul, the ego, the shadow, archetypes like animus and anima, and to become whole, to become truly oneself. For Puella Eterna, the woman who has not matured psychologically, this journey demands that she confront her greatest fear, losing her innocence, losing the magnetic power she has relied on. But Jung emphasized, only when she crosses that threshold can she find a deeper strength, a genuine femininity that does not depend on others. For definition, for the man, the victim of illusion, often falling into the role of savior, the individuation journey is a process of awakening. How can he recognize that he is caught in this cycle? How can he stop confusing the feeling of being needed with true love? The healing path begins with facing his own needs, the need for recognition, the need to be a hero, and understanding that no one can complete another. One can only support them on their journey toward their own growth. Jung taught, true connection between a man and a woman can only occur when both have faced their shadows, when both are ready to take responsibility for their own lives, when the woman no longer needs someone to save her, and the man no longer needs someone to validate his worth. They meet not out of lack, but out of wholeness. This is not an easy path. Confronting the shadow, letting go of illusions, accepting the truth that the person you love is not always someone you can save, and that you are not the hero in their story. But only through this process does true freedom emerge. Freedom not from possession, but from understanding and accepting oneself. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And the healing path is the path that leads us back to that privilege. 7. Breaking the cycle, awakening to lead oneself. Breaking free from the cycle of Puella Eterna is not something that happens overnight. This cycle exists not only within the woman, but also within the mind of the man who has been caught up in it. Carl Jung pointed out a harsh but liberating truth. Everything we refuse to acknowledge within ourselves will return as fate. When a man repeatedly finds himself in relationships with psychologically immature women, it is not simply bad luck from the outside. It is a reflection from within, a part of himself that remains unhealed. Jung called the process of escaping such cycles individuation, the journey back to wholeness within. And for the man, the first step is daring to confront the part of himself that is soft, the part easily seduced by the feeling of being needed. He must admit there is a part of him that craves the hero role, that craves rescuing someone, becoming the one to lean on. But without awareness, that craving will lead him into relationships where he is drained, becoming a life raft for those who refuse to swim. Awakening does not begin with changing the woman. It begins with changing oneself. It happens when he dares to ask, why am I attracted to this type of woman? What part of me needs someone else to feel valuable? Am I using relationships as a way to fill an inner void? These questions are uncomfortable, but they are the key to breaking the cycle. Jung once said, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. And that very darkness, disconnection from oneself, the avoidance of unprocessed emotional wounds, is what keeps a man caught up in women who are not ready to grow. When he dares to face his own shadow, he begins to reclaim leadership over his life. Leadership here does not mean controlling others. It means controlling oneself. It means realizing he does not need to save anyone, because saving someone is not the path to true love. It means learning to distinguish between momentary emotional attraction and real connection. It means knowing when to step back from relationships where he is expected to shoulder too much of the other person's emotional burden, because he understands the woman needs to stand on her own feet before she can truly walk alongside. Breaking the cycle happens when the man stops seeking being needed as proof of his worth. He no longer lets someone else's emotional storms dictate his inner peace. He no longer chases after relationships full of illusions, hoping to turn them into reality. Instead, he chooses wisely, choosing a partner, not someone to rescue. That is when the man becomes a pillar of strength for himself, not through muscle or power, but through clarity, by knowing who he is, knowing what he needs, and daring to say no to what no longer serves his growth. That clarity creates a different kind of magnetism, one that keeps him from being swept into emotional whirlpools, making him a steady anchor for himself and for healthy relationships. And only when a man reaches that state can a truly mature woman step into his life, not to be saved, but to build alongside him, to grow with him. She does not need him to fill her, nor does she need him to carry her. Instead, they walk together willingly, because they have both walked through their own shadows. Carl Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And the journey of breaking free from the cycle of Puella Eterna is the first step on that path, not to avoid immature women, but to be clear-sighted enough to recognize them and choose another direction, a path where the man is no longer the bearer, but the leader of himself. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And becoming yourself does not mean becoming the savior of someone else. It does not mean chasing after relationships built on illusion. It means being clear-eyed enough to know where you stand and what truly nourishes you. On this journey, a man must relearn something that seems simple. Love alone is not enough. Just because someone appears to need saving does not mean he must be the one to rush in. True love is not where one person saves the other, but where two mature individuals meet, stand side by side, not out of lack, but out of wholeness. Therefore, when he recognizes Puella Eterna, when he understands that some women remain trapped in a childlike world, refusing to shoulder the responsibility of their own lives, that is also the moment he realizes he does not have to carry their burden. He no longer needs to be the hero in someone else's story. He needs to be the leader of his own life. And when he steps out of that cycle, when he stops chasing relationships that cost him his peace, he will begin to feel a different kind of freedom. The freedom of standing firmly on his own 2 feet, knowing who he is, what he needs, and what he deserves. Only then will he be ready to meet a real woman, a woman who has matured, who has walked through her own shadows. She does not need him to fill her voids, nor does she need him to avoid her own growth. She stands firm, just as he does, and from these 2 states of wholeness, love can truly begin. Jung did not offer us idealized models to chase after. He offered us the truth, sometimes harsh, but always liberating. And that truth is this: only when we stop seeking salvation outside of ourselves can we return to our whole, authentic self. Only then can we love, not to save, but to grow together. So, after everything you have seen and realized, will you stay in the cycle? Or are you ready to step out, to become the leader of your own life?